All right, high level spiritual relationship advice. Man, this can apply to anybody, no matter what. This is not just relationship advice. This is romantic or not. It could be friends, anybody that you're talking to, anybody that you converse with, that you have a relationship with, really. This will profoundly help you when you realize this high level truth, right? When we are committed to our spiritual endeavor, to a high degree, we see that in a general sense, we follow this path to alleviate our suffering. At least I do. That's why I do what I do. Is because I want to learn how to alleviate suffering on this planet. And how can I do that? And how can I help others to do that? So this is one tip that I've picked up along the way. It is at a high level. So this is when you've done the complete spiritual awakening and you're past the oh my God, my world's ending phase. Because I've been there. A lot of us have been there. And when we're in that phase, we're going to need help. A lot of the times that could even be help on YouTube, it could be coaches, it could be friends, and it could be new friends. Because we see, when we follow this path, that currently it's going against the grain. And that doesn't mean in 10 years it's going to be. But the way that society is in the start of this year, at this time, is that if you're following a spiritual path and you're not necessarily in an organized sense following a path, then you're different. And what this results in is kind of this loneliness that we have to learn to adapt to. And we only feel lonely because we felt like we were in something. We were in this space where people liked us, and then we liked that. And then when we no longer had that, you feel this sense of loneliness. So this is just common in the spiritual path. So if you felt lonely before, if you feel lonely now, that's okay. Like, that is part of the journey. And that's a great place to be, in my opinion, because there's so much growth that can happen from loneliness. Because you have two choices, right? And this just goes, and I'm going to get into the advice in just a sec, but this is important. When you're feeling lonely, you have two choices. You can either, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter to anybody else but you. And it's not necessarily a mistake either way. You just are going to have, you could just say, consequences for what happens. And it's not good or bad, it just is. So if you're lonely and you get really sad that you're lonely, the consequence of that is you're not going to feel happy. But if you learn that being alone will allow you to cultivate your own energy, and it has many benefits, right? We don't have to go into those. That in itself will result in your happiness. And then the consequence of that is you're not going to be sad, right? And there's more emotions than that go into it. And just like the levels of consciousness go, there's, probably 5 or 6 low, and that's more the 3D body type. And then when we get into the 4D, we see that that's more of like the mind. We get into the mind, the higher mind, and that's where we can start to transcend the loneliness. But this is not about loneliness, because the video is about relationships, right? So my relationship advice to you, and that was a prerequisite, by the way, is understanding that a lot of people feel lonely, especially on the spiritual journey. So if we know that we kind of felt lonely, then when we find people that are like us, because more than likely we're going to find people that also are on this journey eventually, when we reach a state where we attract them into our life. And when we do this, it's important to realize that on the high level, right? Well, first of all, on the low level, let's talk about the low level first. The low level is when we get into these relationships, could be friendships, could be romantic, where people help us, right? We're down, we're in the beginning of our awakening to what we really are. And it feels like we need that support system, right? When we're feeling down, we're feeling shameful, we're feeling like we're not worthy, we're feeling sad, we're feeling guilt, fear, any of these emotions, it's great to have people around and to lift you up. But when we get into a higher level, and we understand consciousness, we've studied the levels of consciousness, been around the block, so to speak. There comes a time where you realize that even with the voice cracks, you don't need anyone to get you out of your own lower states. You see, when we get to higher levels, there are going to be moments where we feel down. But that also, and this is hard for some people to hear, but again, this is the high level. It is our own responsibility, and this is courage, but it's our own responsibility to alleviate our own suffering. You're right. And we have support system through, people we might listen to on YouTube or friends and things like that, but they are not responsible for your own mastery. You see, if we really want to master reality, I want to master reality. Mastering reality is actually about unlearning, because we were pure consciousness. We were pure before we came here. And we might have karma that we're working out. We might have soul karma that we're working out. But that doesn't mean that we are not still beyond that. Right? And so when we have relationships, it's very important, if you really want to master this reality, first of all, to realize that you're never going to know everything. And when we study the inner, that becomes our priority. So we no longer put on facades for anybody. We no longer have to put on a show, so to speak. We come into our own being and we relax and we feel what we're feeling. But we also see through the illusions, because each level of consciousness in itself is an illusion. So if you're feeling fear, the ego's tricking you by telling you that, well, if you feel fear about this, you're going to stay alive, right? That's the trick. And if you're maybe in pride, if you're prideful, which is still not in truth, pride tricks you by saying, well, what I know is right. What everybody else knows is wrong, and my way is the only way. But that's not necessarily true, right? And so each level, we could even talk about even lower levels, shame tricks you by thinking you should actually be ashamed because you're not innocent, because you could be unloved, which is all not true. You see, so when we've studied the levels, we've begun to really understand the map, then we see that, oh, we can't really fall into these lower levels unless we fall for the trick. So when we actually do fall for the trick, of course, that happens to all of us. It's okay that we ask others for help to get us out. But on one level, on a high level, we want to learn how to not even fall for those tricks in the first place. And so this is mastery. This is the advice, because it's almost like, for me, in my own journey, I've almost become addicted to them almost feeling bad for me. And just kind of think about this in your life. Maybe this might apply to you. When you think about when you really get upset, it's almost like you want them to console you because you want to feel loved. And the biggest trick, if you can remember this, the biggest trick of the ego is that you are not loved. Or you need this in order to be loved. And if you can see through that, if you can see through and know that you are loved no matter what, and if you can feel that love, even in those lower levels, this is when we start to transcend needing somebody else. And this is what the concept I'm talking to you about is. To say it in one sentence, we don't need to rely on others to alleviate our own suffering. And when we get to a high level, we don't have others alleviate our own suffering because we can pull ourselves out. So true mastery comes when we understand how it works. And then since we understand it, we can recognize when we're feeling fear. And then we don't say to our partners, our lovers, our friends, I'm feeling really scared about this. Oh, the whole world's going to end. Everything is going bad. I'm really scared. We don't really even say that to the world. We don't put that out to the world because you might feel that. But then when you understand, even before you start talking to other people, oh, okay, so where am I? Like you do a self-assessment. Where am I? What am I feeling right now? And I actually ask myself this out loud. Like, do this in your life. See if this helps you. I say to myself, where am I? Oh, I'm feeling fear because I've been watching a lot of lower level content about where the current world is. So instead of letting that control me, and again, I'm saying this out loud to myself. So instead of letting that control my level of consciousness, I choose to see through it. And then I'm analyzing. Okay, so what's going on here? I'm feeling fear because I've been doing this. Okay. But that doesn't necessarily mean that fear is going to keep me alive. You see, that's the first thing to kind of look at. Is this keeping me alive? Is it a rational fear or irrational? Is it going to help me or is it not going to help me in this moment? And most of the time you'll find that it won't help you. Okay. So if it's not helping me and I know where I'm at, how do I transcend it? Well, since I've been studying the levels and since I've kind of understand consciousness, so I can see through the ego's illusion that it's trying to survive, and I'm glad that I have a body that wants to survive. And so I'm happy that this body is trying to keep me alive, but that thought pattern is not going to serve me. So I can alleviate this suffering by letting my body know that I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm good. I'm good. I'm not going to die. Even if I did die, so what? I'm an immortal being. Like I'm using my PS4 controller to play the game. I'm using my Xbox. This is my controller. If the controller dies, I don't, right? And I got to remind myself of that when I'm in these states. So then I'm pulling myself up from fear. And then I say to myself, okay, what do I want? What do I want in this moment? I want to feel better. Okay, then immediately, what have you done? You've moved from fear to desire. You desire, and desire is right above fear. So if we are in this place where we just desire to have a better future, we don't want that to happen. Well, fear's not serving us, so we can have that desire, and we can act on those desires. And then we've moved on. And again, there's a progression that it keeps going, but I could walk you through every level, but that would take me like 30 minutes. So this is just kind of like a rundown of how we can, as a sovereign being in this life, in this body at least, we can say to ourselves, oh, okay, this is where I'm at. This is fear has a hold on me because of this. But this is not the truth of who I am. I am not this emotion. And I can transcend this. And then this is where my concept of feeling loved comes in. If you're feeling fear, this is one of the toughest things to do in the lower levels, right? Because when you're below 200 on the scale of consciousness, on the map of consciousness, it's really you're so far away from love, it feels like love doesn't exist. So if you can remember this, and you practice this is real spiritual practice to me. So when we want to feel this, We really want to master. We practice this. Why? So that when these emotions come around that are causing us to suffer, we can see through them. This is the whole essence of spiritual practice to me. And so when we are in this state, when we get down to these levels, we have remembered through our practice that love is available. So what do we do? What have I done in the past to feel this? We just feel here. We just feel here. And we feel into our heart. And we might quiet down for a little bit. Just feel our heartbeat on our hands, or just listen to our breath. We just slow down and we just try and open this up. And maybe you try to think about something that you're grateful for, some higher level emotion. Could be gratitude. It could be love for something, love for your beautiful dog, or love for this opportunity to even be alive and feel these emotions. And I know that when you're in that lower level, it's so hard, but you gotta figure out something that works for you if you want to alleviate your suffering, that is, and have that kind of be your mantra, so to speak. It'll be this thing that you tell yourself when you're in a lower level emotion. So you might even say to yourself, oh, I'm safe. I'm so loved. I'm safe. I'm so loved. And you might put on some meditative mind on YouTube, or you might put a really good song on, and you just repeat that to yourself. And to the lower level person, that might seem kind of weird. But to the higher level person, they've transcended weird a long time ago. And you realize that weird is just this concept that's put on us because we're different, or we are different than the current societal narrative. But maybe in ancient Egypt, it would have been the commonplace. Maybe in Atlantis, it would have been the commonplace, like Lemuria, maybe. Like, we don't know. So we're bringing a different way to approaching it, and it's different, but it's not necessarily something that is weird, right? We can just transcend that. So we are in this place now where hopefully we see through that at one level we will transcend even needing others, because we've mastered our own journey so much. And of course, at some level, when we get to the highest levels, you'll drop even that. But for what I'm talking about is when we get to courage, when we get to maybe different emotions, this is something that has really helped me. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if the video helped, feel free to check out any of my other videos right here on YouTube. And also, I do have a course on the levels of consciousness, which I've kind of been talking about in mastery. So if you're interested in that, link is in the description. Other than that, I will see you in the next video. All right. Peace.